Let's look at assignment 2 of data structures and algorithms in Python. The topic of the assignment is hash tables and Python dictionaries. So let's get started. The first thing we'll do is go to the course website pythondsa.com, and on the course website you can find all the lessons and previous assignments. Now we are looking at assignment 2, so you may want to open that up, and assignment 2 is based on or inspired from some of the topics discussed in lesson 2. So you may also want to watch lesson 2 and complete the notebook before you work on assignment 2. Let's open it up. Now in this assignment, you will apply some of the concepts learned in the first 2 lessons to implement a hash table from scratch in Python. That's very interesting. And hash tables are a very important data structure. They're present in pretty much every programming language and are a common topic discussed and asked in coding interviews. So we'll see how to implement them from scratch. And one of the central problems in hash tables is called collisions. So we'll see how to handle hashing collisions using linear probing. And we will also replicate the functionality of Python dictionaries. So Python dictionaries are actually implemented using hash tables. So we'll see how to replicate the way Python dictionaries are created and used and modified, and the way we access keys and iterate over keys and set values and change values and so on. So we'll pretty much re-implement the Python dictionary. And finally, you will also get a chance to ask questions and help others on the forum. Now we have an assignment starter notebook here, so we can click on view notebook to open up the notebook. Once again, this is a Jupyter notebook, and as you work through the notebook, you will find question marks in certain places. To complete the assignment, you have to replace all the question marks with appropriate values, expressions, or statements to ensure that your notebook runs properly end to end. Okay, so make sure that you run all the code cells, do not change any variable names, and in some cases you may need to add code cells or new statements. And since you'll be using a temporary online service for code execution, keep saving your work by running jovian.commit at regular intervals. There are some optional questions. They are not considered for evaluation, but they are for your learning, so do try them out. And you have a community forum where you can ask questions. And finally, there are some tests included within this notebook to help you test your implementation. But these are not exhaustive, and your submission will be tested on some hidden test cases. So make sure to test your code exhaustively to cover all the edge cases. And you will see, especially so in this assignment, when you make a submission, you may get a fail grade even though all of your test cases are passing, and that is intentional, and that is to help you understand the importance of creating good test cases. So do test your code exhaustively. Okay, so let's run the code. Now, the recommended way to run the code is using free online resources, Binder specifically, but you can also run it on your computer locally. So we're going to click run and click run on Binder. Once again, this may take a few minutes sometimes depending on the current traffic on the platform. There we have it. Now we have the Jupyter notebook running. The first thing I like to do is click kernel and restart and clear output so that we can execute all the code cells and see their outputs from scratch. I'm also going to hide the header and the toolbar and zoom in here a little bit so we can see things a little better. The first thing we will do is set a project name, import the Jovian library, and run jovian.commit. This will allow you to save a snapshot of your work to your Jovian profile. So now you have a copy of the assignment starter notebook. Any modifications that you make every time you run jovian.commit will get saved to your personal copy, and it is this personal copy that you will submit at the very end. So let's talk about the problem statement. In this assignment, you will recreate Python dictionaries from scratch using a data structure called hash tables. And dictionaries in Python are used to store key value pairs. So keys are used to store and retrieve values. And here's an example. Here's a dictionary for storing and retrieving phone numbers using people's names. So we have a dictionary called phone numbers, and the way you create a dictionary is using this special character, the brace or the curly bracket as it's called. And then in a dictionary, you have these key value pairs. So this is one key value pair where you have a key. The key in this case is a string Akash. And here you have a colon. And then here you have a value. The value in this case is a phone number. So that's how you create a key value pair. And comma separated key value pairs is what you need to create a dictionary. You can see once the dictionary is created, it is displayed in the exact same way. And then you can access a person's phone number using their name. So if we have the variable phone numbers and we use the indexing notation, so this is the square bracket, and we pass in a key here, we get back their name. And you may wonder what happens if the key is not present. The great thing about Jupyter is you can insert a new cell. Like you can just click insert cell below, or you can use the keyboard shortcut B as I just did and check, maybe let's check the key Vishal. Okay, and you get back a key error. And you may also wonder what happens if, is it case sensitive? Does that matter? You can check it very easily. So a lot of the questions that you might get, a lot of the questions that you may want to even ask on the forum or look up online can be resolved simply by creating a new cell and typing out some code. Right? What happens if questions can all be answered by writing some code? So now let's add some new phone numbers. So this is how you create an initial set of phone numbers. This is how you access a phone number, and this is how you add new values. So adding new values is like accessing them, but instead of accessing it, you put an equal to, and then you actually set the value here. So we can add a new value here, the phone number for Vishal, and we can also update an existing value in a dictionary simply by accessing that value and putting an equal to and putting in a new value there. You can see now that the dictionary is updated to contain the new phone number 7878 and not the original phone number 948948. You can also view all the names and phone numbers stored in the phone number dictionary using a loop. So you can say for name in phone numbers. So when you put a dictionary into a for loop, you get back a key within each loop. You can see here that the name and the phone number here is displayed for you using the print statement. So those are some things that you can do within a dictionary. And dictionaries in Python are implemented using a data structure called a hash table. And a hash table uses a list or an array to store key value pairs and uses a hashing function to determine the index for storing or retrieving the data associated with a given key. So here's what it looks like. Here you have the key John Smith, and you have a function called hash, and the function hash takes any key and it returns an index within the list. So why do we use a hashing function? Well, one approach, as we've discussed in lesson 2, is we can store key value pairs in a list, and we can simply search through the list each time we want to look up the value for a key. But that is inefficient because that requires looking through potentially all the keys before we get to the key that we want, or maybe half of the keys. So that makes it an order n operation if n is the size of the list. That's pretty inefficient. We want something faster, and a hash function actually operates in constant time. So hash simply takes the key and it converts a key into a number. So in that sense, it gives you the index of the specific key value pair in constant time rather than order n. And that is what makes hash tables so efficient. Right? So a hash function does not require looping through the list. It simply takes a key, gives you the index, and you can simply then get the key value pair or the value from that index. Now your objective in this assignment is to implement a hash table class which supports these operations: an insert operation, a way to insert a new key value pair, a find operation to find the value associated with a given key, an update operation to update the value associated with a given key, and then list operation to list all the keys stored in the hash table. And here's where we are going to use Python classes. And there's a brief introduction to Python classes in lesson 2 of this course. So do check out lesson 2 if you want a refresher on Python classes. You have the class hash table, and inside the class hash table you have a bunch of methods. Now the insert method, apart from taking the self argument, and remember that the self argument refers to the object of the class that will be created. So this is equivalent to the this variable in Java or C++. But these are the actual arguments of the method. The actual arguments are key and value. So the insert function or the insert method will take key and value. Then the find method will take a key. The update method will take a key and value once again. So the find method takes a key and your job is to return the value. The insert method takes a key and value and you insert the key value pair into the hash table. Then you have the list all method, which is used to list all the keys from the table. So before we begin our implementation, let's just save and commit our work. So we're running jovian.commit here. Let's just run that once again. There we go. The notebook has now been committed. So what you can do is you can come back to this particular page and you can find this from your profile, and then you can click run to continue your work based on the modifications that you've already made. Okay, so we build a hash table class step by step. And the first step is to create a Python list which will hold all the key value pairs. Now remember that a hash table internally uses a list to store the key value pairs. And we will create a list of a fixed size. So we'll set this variable max hash table size of size 4096 initially. And we are going to create a Python list of this size. Now, how do you create a Python list of this size? And we want all the values to be set to none. So this is the way to do it. You can, of course, you can start typing none and that would take a long time. Or you can use a simple technique. Just put in none times 4096. And that's one of the great things about Python. It is such an expressive language that creating a list of 4000 elements simply requires this single expression here. You can check that here. You can even check the length of the data list. Now, if the list was created successfully, here are some test cases. Here is one check that the length of the list is 4096. Here's another check, and we're simply picking a random value from the list 99 and just checking if that is equal to none. But if you really want to have a short test here, what you should be doing is you should be checking for item in data list, item equals none. Okay, and here's a trick you can do. You can write a word called assert, and what assert does is if this comparison is true, then it does nothing. It lets your code proceed as usual. But if at any point this comparison becomes false, then it throws an error. So let's see here. You can see here there was no error, so that means it worked fine. But if this comparison was wrong, so let's say if we had here, we wanted the item to be equal to 7. If you put it and data list does not contain the item 7 at certain position, then you will get an assertion error here. Okay. This is how you can create your own test cases by putting in assert. But the idea here is that whatever you try to do, make sure that you're adding some more test cases and not just depending on the test cases that are given here. Okay? These are simply to guide you in the right direction. Okay, so next up, we have a list. Now we need a way to store or insert key value pairs into a list. That's where the hashing function comes into picture. The hashing function is used to convert strings and other non-numeric data types into numbers, which can then be used as list indices. For example, if a hashing function converts the string Akash into the number 4, then the key value pair Akash and the phone number 7878787878 will be stored at the position 4 within the data list. And here's a simple algorithm for hashing, which can convert strings into numeric list indices. And a hashing algorithm does not have a single definition. You can come up with a hashing algorithm, and in fact, coming up with a good hashing algorithm is an area of research in itself. Now, of course, Python dictionaries use hashing that is inbuilt into Python, and that's a fairly optimized hashing algorithm that's probably the result of several years of research. But here's one very simple technique. We iterate over the string character by character, and then we convert each character into a number using Python's built-in ORD function. And you can see here that if you call ORD on the character X, you get back a number. It already gives you a way of converting characters into numbers, but not entire strings. That's why we need to iterate over the string character by character. Then we simply add the numbers for each character to obtain the hash for the entire string. It's a very simple technique. We just keep, if you have the number hello, we take the odd for hello, the odd for E, the odd for L, the odd for L, and the odd for O, and add them together. And since we want that number, the final result, to be an index or a position within the list, so we take the remainder of the result with the size of the data list. Right? So it's possible that once you add the numbers together, you may end up with a pretty big number. But if you take the remainder with 4096 or the max hash table size variable, you get back a number that is smaller than 4096. So you can use just that remainder as the index. So let's first define a function called getIndex. All it does is it takes the data list and it takes a string and it applies this hashing algorithm to return an index for that string, for that key. So for a character in a string, we need to convert the character to a number. So we convert the character from the string into a number by calling ORD on a character. Great. Then we update the result by adding the number. So we say result plus equals a number. Pretty straightforward. And that repeats for all the characters in the string. And then we get back the final result. Now that result may be longer than the actual size of the list. And this is where we may then want to check the size of the list. Okay. Now remember, there's one, I could also have probably written max hash table size here, but that would be wrong, isn't it? Because we are passing in a data list here. We are passing in a data list, and although we have so far created a data list of size 4096, your function should ideally be looking at the size of the data list that you have here and not any global variables. So keep that in mind, and the right thing you should check here is len data list. And what this will allow is, now this will allow your function to work with data lists of different sizes, and not just the standard size 4096 that we have defined above. Okay, very important thing. Always make sure that your functions use the arguments that are passed into them, that they are generic, that they can work with any input, and not just a particular input that has been defined earlier. Okay, so there you go. Now you have, this is our function getIndex that has been defined, and here are some tests. Now if you pass in the data list and you pass in the empty string, because there are no characters, the result is likely to be 0. Great. Here's another one. The result here is 585. Here's another one. The result here is 941. Great. Now this is where you should be testing your function with some custom test cases. I'm going to create a new data list 2, and this is going to have the size none times 48. So this is only going to have the size 48, and I should be testing getIndex with this data list as well. So let's say we're looking at the key Akash. Now we know that, let's see, we can actually test this out here. What happens if you add ORD of A plus ORD of A plus K, A, S, and H? That number is 585. But since the size of the list is 48, what we should be getting back as the result is 48 divided by 585. So we should be getting, 585 and its remainder with 48. We should be getting back the number 9. So this should be equal to 9. Okay. So let's check that if this is equal to 9. And indeed, this is equal to 9. On the other hand, if we had max hash table size, you will see here that since we are not taking into consideration the actual size of the list that was passed into the function, we are getting back the value 585 because we are taking the remainder with 4096. Okay, so remember to take the remainder with the size of the data list that was passed in. So this is one of the several gotchas in this assignment, and they're there for a reason, because this is something that you need to keep in mind. A function which only uses its arguments and does not depend on any external global variables or constants and things like that is called a pure function. Of course, a pure function also does not modify any external global variables. So it simply takes some arguments and returns the result, irrespective of anything else outside. So now we can To insert a key value pair into a hash table, we can simply get a hash of the key. So here we have a key value pair, and we simply get a hash of the key by calling get index for data list and key, and we get back the index 585. And then inside the data list at the given index, we can simply set the key value pair as the element stored at that index. And the same operation can be expressed in a single line of code. So here we're calling get index for data list and Hemant, and that's going to give us an index. And we're going to then invoke a set at that particular index within data list, the element Hemant, comma Hemant's phone number. Now to retrieve or find the element associated with a pair, we can simply get a hash of the element, the value associated with the key. We can simply get a hash of the key and look up that index within the data list. So here we have the key Akash and we have the data list, and we call get index. So we get the index of the key Akash, and that gives us the index here. And we can then call data list and pass in the position IDX, and that should give us a key value pair. Remember that we stored a key value pair at the given index, so we should get back that value here. So now we know how to store a value. You get its hash for the key and you store the key value pair, and how to retrieve a value. So you get a hash for the key and then you retrieve the key value pair, and from there you can get the value. We can also list the keys. To list the keys, here is some special code we are using. So let's see, this is called list comprehension, and let's take a quick look at list comprehension. So list comprehension works like this. If you create a list Y from a list X, let's call this list 1 and list 2. Good variable names always help. So if you have a list 1 and you write this X for X in list 1, what does that do? That for X in list 1 fetches elements one by one from the list, and then here you can specify what to do with the numbers that were fetched. So right now I'm not doing anything, I'm simply returning that number, and then I'm putting the entire thing into a list. What this does is this creates a new list. So you can see this is a copy of the original list. What I could do is I could write X times 2 for X in list 1, and now I would end up with a list in which each element is the double of that particular element. I could also do X times X if I wanted. I could also call a function on it. Let's see what function we can call here. Let's maybe put in some numbers here: 1.3, 2.4, 3.2. So we could put maybe the function math.round x, or sorry, math.ceil. This is going to give us the ceiling. So 1.3 becomes 2, 2.4 becomes 3. So you can do any operation with each element of the list, and once you put that in a bracket and you have this for here, that's going to apply that same operation to the entire list. And this is called list comprehension in Python. It's a very powerful way to express complex operations on lists and dictionaries. And there's one final thing in list operations, which is the if condition. So for X in list 1 can be followed by an if condition, and the if condition can once again apply on X. So if X is greater than 3, let's say we put this condition, then what happens is we choose only those numbers from list 1 which satisfy this condition, X greater than 3. So that means we would skip 1.3, we would skip 2.4, we would get 3.2, we would get 6, we would get 7, and we would apply math.ceil to them. And that's how we get back 4, 6, 7. So that's list comprehension in a nutshell. So to get a list of keys, all we can do is for key value pairs in data list, if the key value pair is not none, remember that we have a lot of none values and it's a huge list. If the key value pair is not none, then we simply return KV0. So remember, if you have a key value pair, if you have like a key value pair that's Akash and a phone number, and you can also put, because these are tuples, you can also put a round bracket here if you want, but even without it, it's the same thing. That's a key value pair. So KV0 is going to give you the key, and KV1 is going to give you the value. So we simply get the key for those key value pairs in data list where the element at that position of the key value pair is not none. and that should not be called pairs, that should probably be called keys. You can see that the keys are Akash and Hemant. So that's how we can now use the getIndex function. And the next step for you is to complete the hash table implementation here by following the instructions given in the comments. So now you have this basic hash table class, and in this class you have a constructor. Now the constructor takes the object self, or this, and the self is going to point to the actual object or the actual hash table that gets created using the class, and then it takes a maximum size. Now what are we doing here? We want to make our hash table configurable. We don't always want to have 4096 elements in our internal list. We may need a hash table that can store more values, or we may need a hash table that can only store fewer values. So we are going to set a default value for it, which is the max hash table size. So if you do not provide this argument, by default it will create a list of size 4096, but we also want the option to specify a maximum size. Now you need to create a list of size max size with all the values set to none. Now you may be tempted to do this, but that would be wrong. Remember that always use the arguments to a function. Try not to depend on an external value or an external constant. So this would be wrong. You may also be tempted to do this data list, self.data list equals data list that we've already created. This would also be wrong, not just because you're not using the max size, but also because now you are tying this class implementation to a global variable, and that global variable is a list which can be modified. So if all the objects of this class, any number of hash tables that you create using this class, will all use the same data list, and that's not what you want. Each hash table that you create, maybe you have a hash table for phone numbers, you have a hash table for addresses, you have a hash table for something else. Each of them should have their own internal data list. And this is not going to create a copy of that original list. This is simply going to point to the original list. So what you want to do is you want to do none, and you want to multiply it with max size. There you go. This is the correct way to do this. Now we're looking at insert here. Now to insert, we did see that to get the index, all you need to do is you need to pass the key. And remember, here you need to pass not data list but self.data list, right? Because now we want to use the data list that is stored inside this specific object of the class. We do not want to use the global data list. And this is something that is a mistake that we often make initially. I've still make this mistake where I have certain global variables defined and I'm using those global variables inside my class. Avoid doing that. Anything that you want to put inside a class object, you need to put inside self, like we've done here. And then to access it, you need to use self dot to access that specific property or element or even method. So now we have self.data list, and we pass in the key and the data list into getIndex, and that gives us the index. Now the getIndex function was defined earlier. We've seen it already. Now we want to store the index inside the list. So we call self.datalist idx, and we want to store the key value pair there. So we can simply put in key comma value here. If you wish, we can also put in the brackets, but they're not necessary. And that's going to insert the key value pair. Now how do we find the value associated with a given key? First, we get the index for the key. So we call getIndex on self.datalist and key. Then we retrieve the data stored at the index. So this would be simply self.datalist of idx. And then if the key value pair is not none, if the key value pair is none, well, there's nothing at that index. We can return none. Another option would be to also maybe raise an index error and with a message, etc., etc. But return none is good enough for now. Then if not, from the key value pair, we get back the key and the value, and then we return the value. Keep that in mind. If you simply return this, you would get an error. You would get an exception that may go unexplained. So whenever you are destructuring or you're trying to get two values out of a tuple, make sure that the tuple is not none, especially in this case, because we're starting with a list of nuns in a place where we're supposed to be storing key value pairs. So that's fine. Now update is going to be pretty much identical to insert. I don't see any difference here, so we can simply say get index for self dot data list and key, and then now we simply store the key value pair inside it. So we can simply store the key comma value inside self dot data list idx. Then for list all, again straightforward, self dot if kv is not none, so get all the key value pairs that are not empty, and then we simply get kv0 is going to give us the key from kv. So that there it is. Here you can see already that we are creating a basic hash table of max size 1024. So the first thing that we can verify is that the length of the basic of the data list is 1024. There you go. Then you insert some values here. So we insert the value Akash, we insert the key value pairs. So we insert the value 9999 for Akash. So this is one key value pair. We are inserting Hemant and 8888. And what this will do is when you call basic table.insert, it will call this insert function, and self will now point to the basic table that we have just created, because we're calling insert on that specific basic table. So self will point to the basic table. So self.datalist will become basic table.datalist, and then the remaining arguments Akash and 9999 will get passed in as the key and the value. So this code will execute. We will get the index within self.datalist for the key Akash, and then within self.datalist or basic table.datalist in this case, at the given index that we just computed, we will store the key value pair, which is Akash and the phone number. And that's how it will work. So we're inserting some values and then we're finding a value. So once we insert the two values and then we find a value, that should give us the value 8888. You may want to then maybe modify this test case to also include the test for the other value that we inserted. So feel free to modify the test cases or add new test cases so that we're checking not just one value but both the values. Next, let's see how if we can update a value. So we call basic table.update and we set 7777. Now suppose you're not implemented update here. Let's for a moment return. Suppose you're not implemented update here. Then if you called update, you would get false here because the value did not get updated. And you can check that by simply checking basic table.find Akash. You can see that it still has the value 9999. That's how test cases are helpful. Let's remove the return. Okay, so now the value seems to have been updated just fine. Then let's get a list of all the keys, and the list of keys should match true. Once again, if we did not have this kv is not none, then we would get back not just this key value pair, but we would get back all the nuns, and we don't want that. So these were some test cases, but you need to now create more test cases and test them out to make sure that your implementation is correct. Now, once you've done that, you would want to run jovian.commit. Now the next step, and this is something that you may have thought about while working through the assignment, is that how do you ensure that different keys do not point to the same index? Because we are doing all these things where we're converting each character into a number and then adding up the characters. Now, obviously, if you have words which have the same characters but in different orders, now obviously there are different keys, but they do not have, they have the same hash. Listen and silent have exactly the same keys, exactly the same hash. So for instance, you can check get index listen and get index silent. Okay, we also need a data list. Let's put in a data list here. Both of them have the hash 655. That means if you insert a value with the key listen and then you insert a value with the key silent, the data at this position will get overwritten. So when you try basic table.find listen, you will get the value associated with silent, and that's bad. And this is called collisions. This is called a collision because here the two keys are colliding in some sense because they're leading to the same hash. And any hash table that you implement is ultimately going to have collisions because the number of strings or the number of keys is possibly infinite, but you have a limited number of positions or indices in your table. So our hash table implementation is incomplete because there can be data loss and it does not handle collisions. And there are multiple techniques to handle collisions. And the technique we will use in this assignment is called linear probing. And here's how it works. While inserting a new key value pair, if the target index for a key is occupied by another key, then we simply try the next index. And if the next index is also occupied by another key, we try the next, and then we try the next, and then we try the next till we find the closest empty location. And then while finding a key value pair, we apply the same strategy. But instead of searching for an empty location, this time we search for a location which contains the key value pair with the matching key. We get the hash of the key that we want to find, and then we check if that position is occupied by another key, not the same key. Then we try the next index, and then we try the next index, and then we try the next index till we find a position which is occupied by a key value pair for the same key. And if we find an empty position, that means the key does not exist, because if it did exist, then it should have been somewhere in that string of searches that we just did. Now by updating the key value pair, again we apply the same strategy, but instead of searching for an empty location, we look for a location which contains a key value pair with the matching key and update its value. So that's how you handle collisions in a hash table. And to handle collisions, we will define a function called getValidIndex, which first gets the hash using getIndex and then starts searching the data list and returns the first index, which is either empty or contains a key value pair matching the given key. So we are now addressing two requirements in one shot with the getValidIndex function. For insertion, we are looking for an empty position. For find and update, we are looking for a position which is occupied by the given key value pair, okay, or the given key specifically. So here's the getValidIndex function, and I will let you work through this. So you will start with the index returned by getIndex, then while true, because we don't know how long we may need to iterate, get the key value pair stored at the index. This is where you may have to, it's simply a question of putting the index into data list, getting the key value pair. Now, if the key value pair is none, which means that there is nothing at that index, it is empty, that's great, we're done. We can simply return the index. On the other hand, if it does have values, so then we get the key and value out of it. If the key matches the key that we want to store, great, then we can return the index once again. If neither of these hold true, we move the index to the next position. But as we move to the next position, it's possible that we may run out of indices, so the index may become equal to the length of the data list. So then we wrap around and go back to the 0th position. So this is an important part where we go around. So now our list is in some sense circular, where we can keep looping around it, so that if we have something that needs to be stored at the last position, but the last position is occupied, then we move back to the 0th position and so on. And then you can check if getValidIndex was defined correctly. And if it was, then these cells should output true. Once again, these are just some sample test cases, so you should include some more of your own test cases here. And then finally, once you're done, just save your work. Now the next step is to incorporate linear probing into your hash table. So here's a new class called probing hash table. Here you need to use not getIndex but getValidIndex. It has pretty similar code, so I'll let you work this out. Be aware not to simply copy paste code, and you will run into issues if you copy paste code. So always make sure that you are writing the code yourself and carefully writing each word or each variable and each method and each argument of the code. Then there are some test cases here for you to test the probing hash table. Once again, you can try it out with some examples and see if it works fine. Specifically here, we are taking the same example, listen and silent, both of which in basic hash table would have the same key, but in probing hash table will have the same position, but in probing hash table will have different positions. And that's it. At this point, you're done with the assignment, so you can make a submission. If you have run jovian.commit, you can take this link and make a submission on the assignment page. Or the other option for you is to simply run jovian.submit Python DSA assignment 2. And once you make a submission, it will be evaluated automatically. So let's click through here. So it will be evaluated automatically. And if you scroll down here, you will see that you will get a grade, and not just grade, but you will also get comments for each question. So if you see here, there are question numbers here. You can see that there's question 5, question 4, and so on. So it seems like since we implemented the getIndex function, since we implemented the data list correctly, question 1 was a pass. Let's see what question 1 was very quickly. Question 1, create a Python list of size max table hash size. Question 2 was a pass. So question 2 was the getIndex function. Question 3 was a pass. So question 3 was complete the hash table implementation. Question 4 was a fail, get valid index. We've not defined it yet. And question 5 led to an exception, obviously because we have some code which will not execute because we have some blanks that need to be filled in. So keep that, use this as feedback. You will know exactly what to fix. And if you are stuck at any point, you know what to do. You can go to the forum. So let's see the forum here. So this is the forum subcategory for assignment 2. You can create a new topic here if you want to have a longer discussion, or you can simply go to the main topic, assignment 2, hash tables and Python dictionaries. And you can ask a question here. There are already a lot of discussions going on here. So it's possible that your question may already have been answered. And after this, there are also some optional questions. Now here, the optional question is for you to implement a Python friendly interface for the hash table. So instead of defining functions insert, update, and find, you will define the functions get item, set item, and instead of list all, you will define the function iter. And also, instead of using the hash function, instead of using the custom hash function that we have defined, you will use a function that's inbuilt into Python called hash, and it takes any string or any object and it returns a number for it. Now, since hash does not accept a list, so you will have to take the remainder manually. So in this case, for example, we've taken the remainder and gotten back the number 3569. So you define a hash table here. And once you have done that, you will be able to use it just like a Python dictionary. You will be able to use it exactly like this. You create a hash table, and then to insert a value, you use the indexing notation and insert a value. To retrieve a value, you use the indexing notation to get the value back. And here you can compare it with the number. To update a value, you simply use the indexing notation again. And to get a list of values, you simply call the list function, or you can also use it within a for loop. And we've also defined a function called repr and str. What that will do is that will let Python print a representation like this when you simply run a cell which just contains the name of this variable. That's one. And then there are a bunch of improvements that you can try to hash tables. This is a great exercise if you want to improve your Python programming skills and also understand how hash tables work. If you can complete these 4 exercises, there's pretty much no question related to hash tables that you cannot answer. You will know everything about them, and each of these exercises may take another 30 minutes to 45 minutes, but it's completely worth the time. Maybe set aside a few hours on the weekend to work on these optional exercises. Now here's one, how to track the size of the hash table. Instead of having to loop through the entire table to get the number of key value pairs, can you store the length somewhere so that you can track it in size order 1? Here's one, to implement deletion. So to implement deletion, you have a technique called tombstones that are used. So you can use this tombstone technique and implement it. Just a little more code. Can you implement dynamic resizing? So instead of starting out with a hash table of a given size or requiring the user to specify a size, can you maybe start with a hash table of, let's say, 128 elements and then double it as soon as you reach 128 elements, or maybe even before. To avoid collisions, you may want to double it as soon as you reach 64 elements, like 50% of the capacity. So dynamic resizing is the technique that allows you to automatically grow and shrink the data list internally. And then here's another technique for collision resolution. This is called separate chaining. So instead of going to the next index, what you do is you maintain a linked list at each position. And for all the keys you still use that position, but you look through the linked list while looking for a key, or you add a new element to the linked list for that position if you're adding a new key there. So here's separate chaining explained in a YouTube video. You can look through that and try to explain it on your own. And one final thing here is also the complexity analysis. And here's where you talk about average case time complexity, because on average, if you have a good hashing function and you've implemented some improvements like dynamic resizing, then the average time complexity for insert, update, find, and delete are order 1, and list of course is still order n. On the other hand, the worst case time complexity, because there can be collisions, are still order n. So here's something for you to ponder upon. What is average case complexity and how does it differ from worst case complexity? This is also something that is discussed in lesson 3 of the course, where we talk about quicksort. And you see why insert, find, and update have an average case complexity of order 1 and a worst case complexity of order n. If not, this is something that you can look up online. Try to see if you can search a tutorial and learn why this happens. Then how is the complexity of hash tables different from that of binary search trees? We've discussed binary search trees in a lot of detail in lesson 2. So now the question becomes, when should you prefer using hash tables and when should you prefer using binary search trees or vice versa? So all these very interesting questions, and you may get asked some of these questions in interviews as well. It will help you, especially to ponder upon some of these questions, even if you do not end up solving all of these optional questions. Do look at the complexity analysis and think about it. And there's a forum thread where you can discuss your thoughts. So what do you do next? Review the lecture video, review the assignment walkthrough video, and execute the Jupyter notebook. Complete the assignment and attempt the optional questions as well. And do participate in forum discussions. And a great way to learn is also to start a study group. Get together with 4 or 5 of your friends, maybe have a Zoom call or 2 every week where you watch the lecture together, discuss different parts of the notebook, and even sit and work on the assignment together. It's perfectly okay to collaborate. Just make sure that you are writing the final code on your own and you're not copy pasting somebody else's work. So this was a walkthrough of assignment 2 of data structures and algorithms in Python.